Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Devika Pare. Today we're going to talk about detachment. Detachment as an idea and as a concept is very important in today's world because we speak about it all the time. Maybe it's because of the innumerable breakups happening around us. Maybe it's because it's an ideology that is stemming and people are discovering it on the lines of stoicism. And there could be a lot of reasons why it is stemming, but it is very key to human nature, right? Because we would want to be in a place where we are able to separate ourselves from that desire that we have or that object of affection that we know makes us weak in a certain way, shape, or form. Let's start with a suffocating concept of defining something. I find it incredibly difficult to describe things, ideologies, people, especially people. Like the who you are question is really daunting. But anyway, what this basically means to me is that you are able to go far behind what you desire and look at that object from a bigger picture, right? And what do I mean when I say look at an object via a bigger picture or via a bigger lens? Is you're able to evaluate that object of desire, affection, whatever it could be, from a very objective standpoint. And not just subjective standpoint, because when you are the third person, right, when you're the third person standing, it is very easy for you to, describe the right from the wrong, to separate from a good deed versus the wrong deed, when you are not a party to that event, right? So, which is why we have a concept of judges and, the jury who sort of assess the situation that is happening in other people's lives to make a better decision then. So, what do you do and how do you do it? Well, for me, I imagine attachment as an on and off switch. It is something that I have been operating on my entire life, and I have only just recently got to know what it truly means. Detachment, right? It is like an on and off switch. You want to be able to switch it on and off, most likely and most preferably when you wish to. Now, this is not always possible, right? But let me tell you about myself. I approach the world from a very detached perspective. I don't try to do that. It is just who I am. I have always recognized as a detached person, right? And the only time I recognize as an attached person is when the person or the object in opposite me is of my interest, is I'm affectionate, I admire that person, or I have a certain set of interests set on that person. That is the only time that I will recognize as an attached person. Otherwise, generally, I approach the world as a detached human being, right? Now, that does not mean that, internally I don't want to attach or that I am such a disconnected person. No, for the most part, I'm very extroverted, right? I'm a people person. But what separates attachment and detachment is to be able to say that, okay, this is not going to be holding me back. This person, this idea is not going to be holding me back. And that is how exactly I prefer to define it, because you can have a bunch of attachments with a person, right? And that has nothing to do with anything, unless there is a point when you know that action, that person is not conducive for your growth. That person is just jeopardizing your vision for yourself. And that is the time when you need to play the detachment card and say, okay, this is not good for me. And, whatever this is that I had gotten myself into is eventually going to have to go away. And how hard do you have to work for that thing to eventually go away? Now, With me, like I said, I turn it on when I'm communicating with someone, when I'm interested in someone, when I have certain I don't know, a similar wavelength with someone, or when somebody is being equally vulnerable in front of me. That is also when I switch off. Or sometimes it automatically happens, because when the person opposite you is being vulnerable, you kind of tend to want to be vulnerable too. And so I switch it off at that moment. And now detachment does not mean that you don't like that person or you're not interested in that person. It just means that right now where I stand, something else is more important to me to look at than this particular aspect of life that is holding me back, right? First of all, you need to have an undying respect for yourself. I do not say self-confidence. I do not say faith. I say undying respect, because you might be the most confident person in the room, right? You might love yourself, right? But that does not stop you from attachment, okay? In fact, it pushes you to attach yourself more to certain things, because you're like, okay, I love myself, and so everybody should love me because I'm a lovable person. But that does not happen with self-respect. And I guess it's basically an umbrella term where self-respect and self-love all come under it, but I still feel like self-respect is very, very critical. You don't want to be the most confident person in the room. You don't want to be the person who is the most amazing speaker. You just have to realize that what you want and what you need right now from your life, right? You don't want to know what's going to happen 5 years down the line. You don't want to see your 2-year future self. All you want to see is, what do I want in this moment, and what is essential to me. And that is where self-respect comes into play, because if you have self-respect in that moment, you will understand that attachment is beyond a lot of things, right? I call it erasing the face, because I feel that the face is a trigger to a lot of things. And it's going to be really, really sad if you're going to have to see each other every day. That's going to take a lot of work, but that's the point of ignorance that I will come to later. But you need to be able to forget the person's face. Now, it might sound weird, but the moment you don't have a face to the acts done by the opposite person, the moment you don't represent the wrong deed done to you with a face, right? A lot of things change, because you are like, okay, because you have a lot of negativity, you have a lot of hate, and you have a lot of malevolence in your mind about that one person. But when that person goes, right, there's no person associated. These are just things that happen to you. Then you are able to express or able to absorb that information more as the play and the game of life itself, beyond this one person who did this horrible thing to me and I'm so traumatized and I'm so... Just try to remove that face. Now, I know it's difficult, but you can do it. You are able to do it, okay? You just try to forget that face. Okay, it's okay if you remember what happened to you, but don't associate a person with that deed, and think of it from that perspective. Like, these things happen to me, and a lot of wrong things happen to a lot of people, right? Nobody owes you anything, no matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are. Certain things happen to you, and they happen to you. And that is the lens that you need to adapt to, because most often what happens is, when you have a person in mind, it's easy for you to target, and it's easy for you to nail your target again and again and again, and talk bad about that one person, and talk all the horrible things about that one person, right? And the person's characteristics contribute, because you were like, okay, he was always like this, his personality and his red flags. I've done that. I still do that so many times. But you need to be able to take the person off. Like, this was done to me, right? I don't know who did it to me. It might seem foolish, but just try to think about it from the way that I'm thinking about it. Is, he did this thing to me. Let's say he cheated, right? He went around with another woman. Who is he? I don't know. This has happened to me. So now you're able to say, okay, this has happened to me. So what is the lesson I have learned, right? What are the things that I ignored that I shouldn't have ignored? And then you're able to move on, because now you're not thinking about that person. It's not about your ego. It's not about who wins. It's not about you versus him, or you versus her, or you versus who. It's about what happened to you and what you can learn with it, right? Always try to take the face off the issue, take the face of the problem. And I think a lot of problems can be resolved because you have so much of bias. Even in a normal discussion, you have so much of bias against that one person that you are not able to have a conducive, healthy discussion with that person, because you know that you already judge that person, and so it makes you already irritable. It already makes you intolerant of what the person has to say, even when the person hasn't spoken. So this is why sometimes you need to be able to adapt to the third person perspective, right? Look at the situation from a third person, be the judge, be the jury of that situation, and then you will be able to, trust me, you will be able to be in a healthier mindset. You will be able to look at things in a better, clearer perspective when it comes to your own flaws and the other person's. We don't know who the other person is. All right, because when you think about the other person, the memories with the other person, the goods, the bads, the past, the promises, everything comes with that person. We don't want to think about that. We want to think of, if you truly want to resolve the situation, right, remove that person from the situation and remove yourself from that situation. Okay, now removing yourself is very difficult because you're agonizing, right? You're in pain. But at least try to remove the other person from that situation and look at it from a very, very empathetic perspective. Recognize your malevolence. Now, this point is somewhat borrowed from Jordan Peterson. I love that man. He's like a father figure to me. He talks about the dark side of humans and our own malevolence, and this is his key word if you've ever heard him speak. And what is like this dark side that we talk about right now? You need to understand that if you are going to look at yourself from a high ground, right? If you're gonna say, right, I'm this amazing person, I never do anything wrong, and I'm the best I can be, and I'm this Puritan, and I just do these amazing things, and I have these amazing values. Well, you are never going to be able to assess the situation. Why? Because we all know that we are tainted with this negative feelings. We all have it in us, right? We all at some point wanted to slap someone right in the face, or we all wanted to just throw a glass of wine on somebody's face and get out of there. These are feelings that are human, and history is proof that there is a very thin line that separates, the dark you and the other you. How do we stop this darkness from coming outside us? How do we stop ourselves from rebelling in a way that is going to destroy others and that's going to be hurtful to others? And why does your dark side rebel? It rebels because it is not being heard. Your dark side rebels and wants to come out because it is not being acknowledged. It is like that child who wants to be paid attention to but is not being paid attention to. So what you need to do is you need to start by knowing that you have this darkness within you, and all of us do. We have this negative feelings, which is what we classify as, right? Like jealousy, lust, all of these tints of the human personality that exist. And so you need to acknowledge that it is there. Okay, that's the first step. Nobody's perfect, neither are you, nor am I. Number 2 is you need to be able to channel it correctly, right? You need to be able to negotiate with that part of yourself. Now you're like, okay, you know what? I feel so disgusted with this person. I'm so done with this person. This person has hurt me so much, And then the darkness within you is like, I want to do horrible things. I want to take revenge. I want to post this person's picture on social media and say this is the most horrible person ever, and all of those things. But you need to oh, hi. The darkness is here. So, but you need to understand that it's going to be there, and you need to be able to channel it in the right way. You need to be able to say, I feel this way, but at the same time, I want to do horrible things to this person, but why do I want to do horrible things to this person? Who is this person? Does this person owe me anything? Does that person owe you anything? No, he does not owe you anything. He does not. right? As humans, we are selfish to a degree, and he thinks about what he wants and she thinks about what she wants, and I think about what I want. And if there is no, and like I said, right, stand back, be the third person. If you see that there is no potential in any conversation, if you see that there is no potential resolution, if you see that, you know, one party is not ready to talk or the other party is not ready to negotiate, then you clearly know it's not going to be working for you. What do you do with that dark energy? You take that dark energy, you channel it within you, you say, you know what, I'm done. This table, I'm getting up darkness inside you and say, what do I want to make of it, right? What do I want to use it for? Do I want to use it for myself, or do I want to waste it on this other person or this other object? So you want to stray away from hatred and push it towards fuel, right? Make it your fuel. Fuel it for your goals. Fuel it to achieve what you want. Fuel it to work. Fuel it to work out. Fuel it to read. Fuel it because it's going to be a reminder that you need to do better. You need to do better. You need to get better because you respect yourself, right? It all comes from self-respect. And I still say, and I keep saying, you don't have to be the most confident person in the room, but you have to have self-respect. The moment you switch on the attachment button, right? Like, let's say you are with somebody and you meet someone, and you know something that you do, something that you say, something that you discuss, it makes you more attached to that person. Remember what made you feel attached to that person and that object, right? Because when you're in the position in the future, let's say, where you are feeling like it's all a mess and you really want to detach from it, remember why you attached yourself to it. And if the points that attached you to that thing or that object or that person, if none of those things are still existing, then you know you've got to detach. Because the things that you begun with that actually made you appreciate that object, they are not there anymore. And that will allow you to remember why you attached. And then self-respect comes to play in, like, okay, you know what, like, these are the things that I really expected, and these are the things that, you know, were making me stick by this object or this person. And right now, like, I need to have respect for myself enough to know that none of these things are serving me. None of these things are there for me. None of these things are helping me, or none of these things are existing anymore. You know, this is not the same person. This is a different person. This is a different character that I'm dealing with. And then from self-respect, it channels into detachment. So what do I do? You know, you let it be, right? You take the face off. I have taken the face off of all my sort of ex-boyfriends, whatever you call them. They don't have a face, right? Things happen with people, and I don't know. They're nameless. I do know their names, but I don't care about it enough to give them a name. You know, it's not important to me. There are incidents that happened and I learned from them, but I do not need to give it a name. If you like, you know, discussing abstract ideas, concepts, society as a whole, then I request you to please subscribe and please leave your feedback, because I love discussions and I love debates. But that's what we're here for. We're here for understanding ourselves. We're here for learning more about ourselves and others, and why do we do the things we do, and what triggers us and what makes us go for it. But yeah, if you're interested in these questions, then definitely please stick by, subscribe. Thank you so much for dropping by, and let that sink in, and have a good day, and goodbye.